You wrote a fantastic article, Paul, with Noshir Contractor back in 2018. It's in a Harvard Business Review about relational analytics, also known as organizational network analytics, also known as relationship analytics. And I'd love to hear a little bit from you, if you can talk a little bit about what a relational approach to people analytics actually means.
Yeah, so I think the place to start is in a distinction that Noshir and I have been talking about for a long time, and that we opened that article in Harvard Business Review with, and it's thinking about a distinction between individual attributes and relational attributes. When we think of people analytics generally, right, whenever I talk to a company about people analytics, they think, okay, how long has an employee been working here? How many teams have they worked on? How long is their commute to work, right, if they have some extra data? How many performance reviews have they been through? So all of these are attributes of individuals, right? They fall into this category of human capital, right? It's the things that I own, that I carry with me regardless of what job I'm in or what organization I work for. Those are essential elements to running a good people analytics operation and to making sense out of employee behavior and trends. But while they're necessary, they're not sufficient. And that's because so much of how our work really gets accomplished in organizations or in any facet of our lives is through the relationships we have with other people. So while individual attributes are one side of the people analytics equation, the second side is really what we call relational attributes. And relational attributes are really no more than thinking about what's the social capital that any individual has within the organization. What's the nature of the relationships that they have with other people? And we, by our own sheer force of will, by the circumstances that we're placed in, develop all kinds of different relationships and have many different kinds of interactions with people across the organization and outside of the organizational boundaries. And those relationships matter to a very, very important degree for how we're able to accomplish our tasks, the kind of information we bring to our teams. And so if you recognize the importance of these relationships, right? Often people will call these the hidden networks, right? Or the organizational networks. If you recognize the importance of these, you can't be running a full and holistic analysis of employee behavior, action, interaction without considering the relational components of it. And in fact, there has been in the social sciences more than half a century worth of research that has been done to try to understand the relational configurations of individuals to their teams and to their organizations, the organizational networks that encompass teams and business units and business unit interaction, and that scientific work has correlated those with all kinds of outcomes that we care about, not only in HR but in the business units, right? So employee performance on certain kinds of tasks, intent to turnover, right, or resignation, team performance, whether people are key influencers. So there are many kinds of predictions that we can make about employee behavior, and I would argue also the design of our teams and our organizations, if we take special care to pay attention to the relationships that people have and the predictive power of those relationships. One of the big problems to harnessing those insights in the workplace, though, has been that it's really difficult to collect relational data. It's relatively easy to do, a count of performance reviews, right? To see, how many performance reviews has someone had and what was their score. Individual attribute data is much easier to collect and store than relational data is. And the reason that, nerdy academics like me have been able to do it is because, we're funded by the National Science Foundation or ESRC, right? To go and create these really fine-tuned surveys, and we send them out to companies and we get the data back, and we have an army of graduate students that then analyze those data and run the statistical models. But that's just not tractable, right? To do a sociometric network, organizational network survey, every 3 months within a company, that they take an hour to complete. So you add that up times 1,000 employees, how many people hours have you just spent on trying to fill out this survey? Not to mention that networks are dynamic. They're always changing, right? Somebody leaves the organization, someone moves to a different business unit. So to have a good and accurate and up-to-date sense of where we're at, we would need to be running those network surveys weekly, daily even would be better. And it just is a logistic, almost impossibility to collect data at that scale and resolution to be useful. However, all of the collaboration tools that we have been implementing in our organizations right over the last decade or so, ever since this kind of SaaS movement that I talked about, in the kind of early teens, has created the possibility now of capturing these interactions. And it's that digital exhaust that we can now use to be able to construct organizational networks from this relational data and begin to now run some of these relational analytics that we couldn't have done before. And so this is creating a whole new set of exciting possibilities for what analytics can look like within our organization, because now we have relationships. And we can see how relationships are affecting some key variables that we care about. And in that article, what Nashira and I did was we outlined what we called structural signatures, which were essentially the models that you can use to identify key variables, like who's likely to be an influencer, who is someone that we would expect to be able to come up with innovative ideas at some regular basis. Could we identify vulnerabilities? If someone left this position, would we cut off access to a supplier organization, for example? But what we didn't talk about in that article really was what are the use cases for those? And that's what I've been spending basically the years since we wrote that piece, working with companies on. And some of the key use cases really have been around team design. So you're trying to put together a task force or a team that's going to tackle a really key challenge within the organization. And we need that team to get up to speed really quickly. They need to interact flawlessly with one another. They also need to pull in lots of unique information from different parts of the organization to make their decision. We can use relational analytics to identify that optimal team structure. We can use it for DEI efforts. And this is one I'm really excited about is, companies are really good at using demographic data to identify what a diverse team could or should look like. So we can look and say, okay, well, we don't have enough women on this team, right? So we're going to add some more women to it, or we don't have enough African Americans or enough, Latinos on this team, right? Or whatever the case might be. And we can put people on the team. That gets to sort of a diversity question or issue that we might have. But just having people from diverse, demographic backgrounds or cognitive backgrounds or functional backgrounds, whatever the case may be, isn't enough. We need to make sure those people are included, right? That they are being listened to, that they are being asked questions, that they're giving and sharing their knowledge and information. That's the reason to have diversity in our organizations, not to check a box, right? And what relational analytics can help us to do is get a sense of that I in DEI, right? Are the diverse members of our team actually included in the conversation? Are they central to the discussion and to the key decisions that are being made? And that's an area that's really exciting that I think relational analytics can help us unlock.
In this series, we will be speaking to a range of senior leaders who are pushing a data-driven and digital HR agenda. Make sure that you subscribe via your podcast app of choice and also via our YouTube channel for free and regular interviews with the digital HR leaders of the future.